You're watching Bent TV, the AIDS 2014 preview, and with me tonight is Simon Ruth, the CEO of the VAC, Victorian AIDS Council. Simon, this is by far the world's largest scientific and medical conference. There are big expectations around this conference here in Melbourne. What is it that you're hoping to get out of it?
I guess for us, the conference provides a wonderful opportunity for us to remind Australians and Victorians in particular that HIV/AIDS is still a concern. Back in the 80s and the early 90s, HIV and AIDS were on everybody's lips. That message has essentially become a message of the gay community now. But it does give us that opportunity to actually re-educate the community that it is still something they need to be concerned about. And it provides a wonderful opportunity for us to also educate a whole population of politicians who are a new generation and had never had to consider HIV and AIDS, whereas a politician, again, back in the 80s and 90s, it was probably something they were quite well versed in. The younger generation hasn't had that opportunity to think about this, so it'll give them a wonderful opportunity to see how HIV and AIDS affects us in Australia and also how the international impacts it has. Papua New Guinea has one of the worst AIDS epidemics in the world, and they're one of our nearest neighbours, so it's a great opportunity for us to start talking about that more. It's also a great opportunity for us to celebrate how well we've done. Australia has one of the most contained HIV epidemics in the world. It never got into the drug using population, it never moved out into the general community, or it was contained very much within the gay male community and the men who have sex with men community, even though there are still women who contract it. But it's an opportunity for us to celebrate how well we've done and remember why we've done that well. We have to continue to have needle exchanges, we have to continue to look at our prevention activities, and we can do a lot better as well, and we can contain it even further.
It's kind of interesting to note that 30 years on from the epidemic's discovery, that there are countries that with emerging issues like injecting drug users, that we can share our knowledge in this space. We can showcase just how well we did in that and hopefully pass on that knowledge. Similarly, with technological advancements in treatment and treatment as prevention, that's something that we can learn from, and the conference will bring that intelligence to us. Where are we at as far as something like pre-exposure prophylaxis? There are tests and trials going on at present, but it's going to be a major focus of the conference. What do you think the political engagement locally will be on something like pre-exposure prophylaxis?
Pre-exposure prophylaxis, if you're following the debates around HIV and AIDS, is probably one of the most topical things occurring right now. You're right, there are two trials. There's one running through Burnett and the Alfred here in Victoria. There's another one running up in New South Wales. It is possibly one of the most exciting biomedical interventions coming out at the moment. America has pre-exposure prophylaxis, and what that means essentially is you take a pill every day, and hopefully that will prevent you from contracting HIV. All the evidence shows that if you do take the pill every day, that you will not contract HIV. Regardless of what other protective mechanisms you take in your sex life or in your drug use life. And we do know in America that it's been quite political. There have been some large charities and some foundations, one in particular, the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, who's come out and said they don't support it. They think it's a first world opportunity. They think gay men should take more responsibility for their lives. My organisation, VAC, is running a forum with the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, who take a very different position, and they're very progressive in their relationship with PrEP, and they're very pro-PrEP. As such, and so will certainly be one of the central debates that we'll be having in this conference. And we would like to see it come to Australia. We'd like to see Gilead actually put the paperwork into the Therapeutic Goods Administration and try and push for PrEP to be available in this country.
We've seen the tremendous life-changing results of what treatment does to people living with HIV, and the latest information is that it is very difficult to pass on HIV if you're a positive person and on treatment with a zero viral load. But that means everybody who is positive getting tested. It means that they have to have access to that treatment and maintain that treatment. That level of engagement with the community around this science is ultimately your job. How are we going to ensure that that continues and that we will get everybody who is positive tested, on treatment, and ultimately looking after their own lives?
Yep. So you would have seen the Ending HIV campaign last year that is still running in other parts of the country. So our goal is to try and end the impact that HIV has on this community. We don't know how far away cure is, but we can certainly try and prevent any new infections, and we can try and support people who have HIV from it having a detrimental impact on their life. So our goals are to make testing normal, make testing available. We would like to see home testing be made available. We do run the Pronto service in Melbourne, which is a rapid testing facility, and there is a few other places where you can get a rapid test, but we would like to see free and accessible rapid testing available to everybody who feels that they are at risk of contracting HIV and would like that. And then the second part of that is once we are identifying who is HIV positive within the population, that then we get them onto treatment early. And the government did change the regulations recently that allow people to go onto treatment immediately after they've been diagnosed. Previously, you had to have a CD4 count at a certain level to be allowed to get treatment on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme. But we would encourage everybody to consider that decision for themselves. It is an individual decision whether you want to go onto treatment early. But it's certainly the whole theory behind treatment prevention is if we can get everybody who we know is HIV positive with an undetectable viral load, we can probably stop this epidemic from going any further.
Simon, Ruth, we heard from the Lord Mayor just before that there is a huge cultural program and Victorians are invited to participate in this conference. What would you like to tell our listeners that ultimately they should go along and see what's going on, because there's a huge global village that will showcase the cultural aspects of the response to HIV, and everyone's invited.
Everyone is invited. I think there's 160 other events running around this conference. Probably more than half of those events are free and they're open to the public. So the conference is in Jeff Shed, the exhibition centre and the conference centre behind it. The first third of the exhibition centre is going to be what they call the Global Village. There are 18 networking zones in the Global Village, and that is open to the public. Anyone can walk into the Global Village and talk to the delegates from the conference, meet people who have similar interests to them. Of the networking zones, each one has a different theme. So we are partnering with a group called the MSM Global Forum, who are a gay rights group out of America, an international gay rights group. And ours is focusing on men who have sex with men, but there's also a women's networking zone. There is a sex workers networking zone, injecting drug user networking zone, youth networking zone. There's one focusing on Indigenous communities, one focusing on African communities. So it's a fantastic opportunity that if you have any interest in the international aid area or in HIV, or even if you just want to come along and see some colour and movement and maybe hear a paper. Each of those networking zones is running its own sub-conference, so there'll be papers and workshops and opportunities to meet people. So it's an amazing opportunity to participate in the conference.
Simon Ruth, CEO of the Victorian AIDS Council, thank you very much for joining us on Bent TV tonight.
Thank you, Dean. Cheers.
And don't miss AIDS 2014, July 20 to 25, right here in Melbourne. It'll be huge and there'll be something for everybody. I'm Dean Beck. Thanks for joining us tonight.